Hello, welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today we have another episode of the New York Jets 2024 player previews, the 17th installment of the New York Jets player preview series. I thank you, as always, for joining me. Today we're taking a look at two more New York Jets. Aaron Rodgers, the future Hall of Famer on offense, and Quinnen Williams, the star defensive tackle on the defensive side of the football, today on the Jets player preview episode. Now, before we begin, let me quickly tell you about our podcast partners, starting with our friends over at BetUS. The NFL season is here, and there is no better way to get in on the betting action than with America's favorite online sportsbook, BetUS. Plus, my viewers, use my link, which can be found in the description of this video, to get a 125% sign-up bonus on your first three deposits up to $2,000. Betting season, NFL season, it's here. No better way to get in on the action than with our friends over at BetUS. Also, of course, our friends at SeatGeek. Promo code Bubs on Sports for $20 off your first purchase. Look for the green dots. Those are the good deals. Those are the tickets you want to purchase. Tickets for any event, not just sports, not just Jets, not just football, anything. You can buy a ticket for an event. SeatGeek has it. Promo code Bubs on Sports for $20 off your first purchase. And of course, our friends over at Huga House. You see me wearing my Huga House hat all the time on the podcast. If you want the hat I wear, or any of the hats Aaron Rodgers, QB1, who we'll be talking about today's episode, wears, use promo code BUBS for 15% off any purchase and get yourself some of the same swag that the future Hall of Famer, QB1 of the New York Jets, Aaron Rodgers, wears all the time. All of those links to BetUS, SeatGeek, and Huga House can be found in the description of this video. Now, let's not waste any more time, because this is one of the best player preview episodes, I think, of the year, because we're talking about Aaron Rodgers and Quinnen Williams, two elite players at their position, a future Hall of Famer, and a player at defensive tackle, a homegrown elite talent, an all-pro, a beast up the middle. Now, before we get to Quinnen Williams, we got to start with Aaron Rodgers, the man of the hour, the man of the season. However you want to describe Aaron Rodgers' importance and excitement heading into this season, whatever you want to use, it's going to be a big year, hopefully, for him. And really, the season lies on his shoulders, staying healthy and going out there and playing at his normal Hall of Fame caliber self. Now, 6'2", 223 pounds, 40 years old. Will turn 41 in December, so entering his age 40 and 41 season. He was a 2005 first-round pick, 24th overall out of the University of California, selected by the Green Bay Packers, where he spent the first 18 years of his NFL career in Green Bay before coming to the Jets last season via trade. Unfortunately, we all know what happened, so enters his 20th season in the NFL and his second with the New York Jets, and hopefully a full and healthy season from Aaron Rodgers, and that's where we begin. Of course, last year you had all the hype, all the hard knocks and the excitement and the Aaron Rodgers mania and all that stuff going on. All the hype, you go into week one, runs out of the tunnel with the American flag, and just absolutely devastating, absolutely crushing, goes down 4 snaps in, doesn't even complete a pass, misses the entirety of this season, tries to come back. Jets, of course, out of the playoff race, doesn't come back, only plays 4 snaps. And if you're a Jets fan that night, as one me, I was in the building, now you had to wait a whole calendar year to see Aaron Rodgers take the field again, and we're just 12 days away from seeing him do that back on Monday Night Football, this time on the road in San Francisco, of course. And I mean, look, what more do we need to say about Aaron Rodgers? I mean, he's a future Hall of Famer. That's the best way I could put it. No need to call him an elite talent. No need to call him a stud. he's a future Hall of Famer. That is the highest bid. That is the highest, I guess, whatever. That's the highest reward or highest piece of something. That's the highest label. That's the word. There it is. The highest label you could put on somebody in any sport is a future Hall of Famer. And that's exactly what Aaron Rodgers is. And coming back from the torn Achilles, he's got a chip on his shoulder. Before we even get into the numbers and what to expect from Rodgers this season and what would a good 2024 season look like for Aaron Rodgers, who is 40 years old, is coming off a major injury. All those things have to be considered. What is a realistic expectation for a guy that is obviously nearing the end of his career? Before we even get to that, this is a guy that's got a huge chip on his shoulder. This is a guy that is extremely motivated. A guy that the minute he went down last season, sent out the post on all the social media platforms, the night is darkest before, dawn I shall rise again. A guy that has been working to get back to this point and has been crushed from the minute he tried to come back from the Achilles. The media is saying, oh, he's going to get injured again. Oh, he's all about himself. All of this nonsense. And he hears it. I think he puts it in the back of his brain, kind of in somewhere in the back of his head to know, to keep him motivated, to understand all the people he's got to try to prove wrong this season. So many doubters, so many people have crushed him. So many people are counting him out coming back from the torn Achilles, even though he came back historically fast from such a tough injury, especially for a guy of his age. And that's where I think the expectation when you go into Aaron Rodgers this year, anytime Aaron Rodgers in his career has been doubted before, whether it was after the 2019 NFC Championship game where they got blown out by San Francisco, everybody was kind of saying Rodgers' time is done in Green Bay. He's old. He's not the same guy anymore. They've got to move on. And after that, after all those comments, after all those people crushing him, and, of course, the Packers end up going on and drafting Jordan Love, after all that happening, what seemed like trying to get him out of Green Bay, what seemed like the end of an era, Rodgers came back and won back-to-back MVPs in 2020 and 2021. Now he goes into this season, people counting him out, people calling him washed, people saying that he can't come back from the torn Achilles, that he's all about himself. He's not about the team, despite taking a massive pay cut last year, the largest in sports prior to Jalen Brunson's of the Knicks just about a month ago now. Despite all that, people still crushing him. He's so motivated. And when Aaron Rodgers is motivated, when Aaron Rodgers is a chip on his shoulder, he dominates. And there's no other way to put it. Because the last time we saw it, he won back-to-back MVPs. And I'm not saying he's going to go and win back-to-back MVPs, but all I'm saying is, and what Jets fans and everybody I think has to realize, is all this mainstream media nonsense, spinning Aaron Rodgers into a bad teammate and a guy that doesn't care and a guy that doesn't want to be there and all that stuff. He's going to make a lot of people, I think, walk back those comments this year if he goes out there and plays well, which is what he's done in his career when he's been doubted before. This is a guy that's been doubted really his entire career and has been thrown in a bad spotlight, I guess, from a media perspective where they crush him. No matter what this guy has done in his career, he's been crushed. People doubt him. People criticize him. All this nonsense. When you look at him from a player on the field, he's one of the most talented quarterbacks to play the game. And he's a future Hall of Famer. Simple as that. And another thing, too, people want to say, and this is where I guess we can get into some of the projections for this season and really what to expect from Rodgers this year from a statistical perspective. A lot of people are talking about Aaron Rodgers and saying, oh, well, look what he has done the last 2 years. Didn't play at all last season. Didn't play well in 2022. Well, people are forgetting, right? Tore his Achilles last year. People are forgetting that in 2022, Aaron Rodgers played pretty much the entire year with a broken thumb on his throwing hand. And then, of course, last year tore his Achilles. He broke his thumb in week 5 of 2022 against the New York Giants. The Jets ended up actually beating them the next week, as you remember. They went on that long losing streak. Rodgers clearly wasn't the same. Comes out that he broke his thumb in that game and was playing through it on his throwing hand the entire season. Still went out there with a broken thumb on his throwing hand for more than half the season. Still went out there and threw for 26 touchdowns, over 3,600 yards, and still completed 64.6% of his passes. Still finished, I think it was top 10 in touchdowns, still finished top 15 in yards, still finished near the top 12, top 15 in some different statistical categories, even in a year where he was playing hurt, even in a year where he had that broken thumb. So when you look at Aaron Rodgers from a perspective of only being fair to him, right? Everybody wants to criticize him. Well, you got to look at the last season that he was actually healthy. And the last season he was actually healthy was 2021, where he took home his second consecutive MVP. Threw for 4,115 yards, completed 68.9% of his passes, 37 touchdowns to just 4 interceptions. 2020, 48 touchdowns to just 5 picks. That was his first MVP season. Now, by no means am I saying Jets fans should expect, and do we need Aaron Rodgers to go out there and throw for 40 touchdowns? Do we need him to go out there and throw for 48 bombs and only throw 5 picks? No. But if he does that, I mean, this team could probably win 13, 14 games. I think you're looking at Aaron Rodgers this year realistically. Let's be honest here. If Aaron Rodgers goes out there this season and does what he did in 2022, 26 touchdowns, 12 picks, 3,006, if he replicates that season exactly, the Jets are an 11-win team. Because of the defense that this team has, and of course the weapons around him, Breece Hall, all these pieces, where Rodgers won't even need to do a ton of work in a way because they're going to rely a lot on the run. Their offense is going to run through the run game. It's going to go through the run game. No pun intended there. And also, their great defense, Rodgers historically, some of his most recent playoff exits have come with bad defenses. But when Rodgers has a good defense historically, he dominates. He wins games. You look at the numbers. He's 81-10 in his career when his defense holds opponents to 20 points or less. And 35-2 when his opponent is held to 20 points or less since 2016. The Jets have done that the last 2 seasons. If the Jets go out there and hold opponents under 20 points, which they've been doing the last 2 seasons, they're going to win 11, 12, 13 games, even if Rodgers is just 70% of what he's been. And I think that's something people need to realize. We don't need Aaron Rodgers to be 100% MVP form. If he goes out there and is an above average quarterback, 70, 60% of what he's been, the Jets are making the playoffs. Now, can he reach other heights? Yeah. If he is I've said this, right? I think you kind of go by different increments. If Rodgers is a top 12 quarterback, Jets are probably an 11-win team. If he's a top 10 quarterback, you're probably looking at a 12-win team. If he's a top 5 quarterback this year, you're probably looking at a 13-win, maybe 14-win Jet team. 14 wins may be a little ambitious, but 13 wins. If he's a top 5 MVP candidate, MVP form quarterback. You know, I think a possible stat line for Rodgers, right? You look at what Brady did in his 3 years in Tampa. You look at Brady's last season in Tampa, 25 touchdowns, 9 picks. If Rodgers goes somewhere around 28, 29 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, let's say, 3,900, 4,000 yards, somewhere around that, complete 66, 67% of his passes, the Jets are going to be a 12-win team. They'll win the division. They'll make the playoffs, no problem. And I think that's what a lot of people got to realize. This team's so talented. Aaron Rodgers doesn't need to necessarily carry this team. He doesn't need to because of a great defense, because you have Breece Hall, where you can dominate in the run game. Rodgers just needs to go out there, do what he's done, play well, and this team will be fine. And anything more than that, you get 40-plus touchdowns. Well, I mean, we're in for a fun season, Jets fans. So that's really what it comes down to with Rodgers. Now, you look at Brady, like that 2020 season where they won the Super Bowl, right? 40 touchdowns, 12 picks. 4,600 plus yards, completed 65% of his passes. If Rodgers goes out there and does that, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, if Rodgers throws in the 20s of touchdowns, Jets are probably 11-win team. He throws in the 30s, probably a 12-win team. Maybe even a 13-win team. 40s plus, you're looking at probably a 13-win Jets team. I mean, if he goes out there and throws 43 touchdowns and 7 interceptions and 4,350 yards, I mean, you're looking at a MVP season. That would just be crazy. You'd love that. I don't think the Jets need that, but it would be awesome. Just watch out. Aaron Rodgers, chip on his shoulder. We know what he's done before. People counting him out. He's still a Hall of Fame quarterback, and he's a guy that hasn't been healthy in 2 seasons, and people want to criticize him. Well, he didn't play great in 2022. Well, okay, if we're going to be fair to the player, look at the last time he was healthy. Yeah, he won the MVP. Rodgers is healthy. And I know we don't talk about camp much, but he looks healthy in camp, looks good in camp. Looked good in camp, I should say. Camp's over. And you got to be fired up. He's a Hall of Famer. Enough of what the media says. All right, now I move on now to Quinnen Williams, another elite talent. Similar to last year's last episode of the New York Jets player previews, we're breaking down Rodgers and Quinnen Williams in the same episode. 2 of some of the best talents that this Jets team has right now. Quinnen Williams, 6'3", 303 pounds, 2019 first-round pick, 3rd overall. 26 years old, will be 27 in December, so entering his age 26 and 27 season. Of course, the 3rd overall pick in 2019 out of Alabama. One of the only, might be the only actually, McCagnon draft picks remaining. Of course, from that 2019 draft. I have to actually do research on that. I think he's the only one left. Probably is. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Probably is. Either way, doesn't matter. 2019 pick has turned out to be a gem for the New York Jets. He enters his 6th NFL season, has spent, of course, all of his first 5 years in the NFL with Gang Green. And this is the first year that his 4-year, $96 million contract extension kicks in. Of course, last year you had not really a holdout, a small holdout in the offseason where he didn't show up to the OTAs and minicamp stuff. But they got the deal done before training camp, was in by training camp. And after a massive 2022 where he had 55 tackles, 12 sacks, 4 passes defended, 10 stuffs, all that stuff, 28 quarterback hits, 12 tackles for loss. The list goes on and on. They gave him that big contract. That finally kicks in this year, as he, of course, was in the final year of his rookie deal. Jets, of course, picked up that, of course, gave him that extension. So the first year, the extension kicks in with the 5-year rookie deal, 5th-year option, finishing up last year. So 4 more years of Quinnen Williams at the very least, as he's in the heart and soul, I guess, or the prime. That makes sense. Prime. The middle of his prime, or just entering the beginning of his prime in his NFL career. And Quinnen Williams is an interesting player to break down because I think a lot of people last year, when you look at Quinnen Williams and you look at Quinnen Williams was one of those guys last season. Now, 2022, of course, was dominant. 12 sacks. We talked about it, 55 tackles, 28 quarterback hits. We already mentioned the 12 tackles for loss. The pressures were off the charts. Great year. Last year, if you didn't watch Quinnen Williams, and it's crazy the amount of people that I've gotten, like people that I know that have come up to me and was like, man, Quinnen Williams, that contract's not looking good. And I'm like, yeah, you're just looking at the box score. If you're just looking at the box score, if you're just looking at you on ESPN, Google Quinnen Williams, and you're just looking at the sack numbers, you are not properly rating what Quinnen Williams did last year. Quinnen Williams was still an elite talent last year. Sacks aren't always, and I want to make this clear, aren't always the end-all be-all for these players. It's so annoying how many people talk about sacks. Like sacks is the only stat that matters. And I understand they're big. And I understand you want Quinnen Williams, your guy that you gave $96 million to go out there and put up 10 plus sacks a year. I get that. But considering what Quinnen Williams had to go through last year, from a double team and a triple team perspective, the fact that he still put up 5.5 sacks, and not even just that, 11 tackles for loss, 20 quarterback hits, and 29 pressures is crazy, crazy impressive given the fact that he faced a 70% double team rate, which was by far the most in the NFL, blew every other defensive lineman out of the water. 70% of his snaps, he was being double teamed. Some of them being triple teamed. I don't have the exact number, how many of them was being triple teamed, but this was a guy that attracted so much attention and was still able to go out there and actually put up numbers in some ways that were actually better than 2023. Maybe not so much from a sack perspective, but there are some categories that Quinnen Williams actually got better in from 2022 to 2023. Still an elite talent. Ranked as the second best defensive tackle in the NFL, only behind Chris Jones. And I think you can make the debate, but I think most people would probably tend to go in the direction Chris Jones is the best. But Quinnen Williams is still a first-team All-Pro, two-time Pro Bowler, was a Pro Bowler again last year. After the first 3 years of his career where you saw some good things, but you were still waiting for him to fully break out, these last 2 years, he has fully broken out and has fully dominated. And, of course, is dominating on the defense with his brother. You look at some of the other numbers, some of the more advanced numbers, other than just looking at sacks and calling it a day. Talked about the 70% double team rate. So that means only 30% of his snaps, he was not getting double teamed. It kind of hurts your brain. It's a little frustrating because you would like to see a guy of his caliber be able to get to the quarterback easier. The Jets surrounding him a little bit more, giving him a little bit more protection, if that makes sense, up front to allow him to get home easier, which is something I think you hope that Kinlaw can produce a little bit this year. Whenever the heck Hassan Reddick comes back, he can, of course, be an elite talent that puts up crazy sack numbers and pressure rate and get to the quarterback almost every play, be a legitimate game wrecker, where some of the attention could get taken off of Quinnen Williams because a lot of the defensive line at times last year, if it wasn't Quinnen Williams getting home, nobody was getting home. It was up to him, and defenses were focusing so much of their attention on him. So you hope that they can find ways to open him up a little bit more. But despite all that, last season forced 29 incompletions by pass rush. That was tied for first with Chris Jones. He had a 38% run stop win rate, tied second among defensive tackles. And he had a 29 pressures, which ranked fourth most among defensive tackles. So still top 5 and actually top 2 in those 3 statistical categories. And that's something else that people don't always talk much about Quinnen Williams. Yes, he's a fierce pass rusher. Yes, everybody wants to look at defensive tackles and look at their pass rushing numbers, and rightfully so. That's what he's paid to do. He's paid to get home to the quarterback. That's why you give him $96 million. You don't give him $96 million to just stop the run, but he's very, very good against the run. We talked about the 38% run stop win rate, tied second among interior defensive linemen. Last year, his run numbers actually got statistically much more improved. 2022, his all-pro season, he had a PFF run grade of 77.7, which ranks 7th out of 73 eligible interior defensive linemen. So still top 10, but you look at last year, his 90.4 PFF run grade was first among a 75 qualified defensive tackles. So statistically, in some areas, was actually the best defensive tackle against the run last year. Was a top 2, top 3 defensive tackle against the run. And that can't be undervalued. I know pass rushing is his specialty, and that's what he's paid to do, is get to the quarterback and make a quarterback's life miserable. Understand that, but people do sometimes criticize this Jets team, while I don't always think it's the right criticism, because the way teams get their rushing yards against the Jets, a lot of it is late in games, just keep running it, so they're going to get yards eventually. It's not big chunk plays. It's just eventually wearing them down because they're always playing behind. This year, that's not going to be the case. They're going to be playing with leads, which is also an opportunity for Quinnen Williams to step up. They're going to be playing with leads. Just look at last year, the 2 games the Jets defense was able to play with a lead. All right, yes, you saw that Texans game. Quinnen Williams had a sack in that game. They were able to play with a lead. That was one of their only games. Even that New England game at the end of the year, finished the year had 2 sacks in that game, playing with a lead. So he'll play with a lead a lot more this year, which will allow him to get home because teams need to throw it. Defense can play with a lead, can pin their ears back and let the guys up front go to work. But the run defense can't be undervalued. That is something that he brings to the table. That is part of his big contract, part of his, not just a special. This is a well-rounded defensive tackle that can also go well against the run. I know run doesn't pop up always in the numbers. I know you don't go onto the ESPN box score and see run stop numbers, but dig a little deeper and you watch him play, he's very good against the run too. I also thought this was a really interesting number. So people that say, oh, he took a step back last year. Well, here's what I have for you. 2022 pressure rate, 12.4%. 2023 pressure rate, 15.1%. So getting double teamed 70% of the time, he actually saw a higher pressure rate than he did in 2022. So thought that was interesting. He's also at a 90.8 overall grade last year, which finished third among interior defensive linemen, is one of the highest, I believe the highest graded player from that 2019 draft class. So really turning out to be, one of the better draft picks for the New York Jets here. Mike McCagnon style. So Quinnen Williams, an absolute monster. You look at what he can do this year, I think, ideally you do see the sack numbers, of course, go back up. I think it's more than capable of hitting 10 again, 10 plus where he was 12. Hopefully the defensive line can provide a little bit more outside of him where teams have to shift their focus to other guys, not just Quinnen. Hopefully he doesn't get double teamed 70% of the time again this year, and the Jets can open up some things for him. And again, like I said, playing with a lead will help a lot because the defensive line is going to get their chance to pin their ears back and go to work. And I think that's where you're going to get a lot of these guys up front really proving their wealth. So that's Aaron Rodgers and Quinnen Williams, episode 17 of the New York Jets player previews. Possibly our last episode. I don't want to confirm just yet whether or not it will be, but most likely this probably will be our last episode. I could preview some other pieces. I know Hassan Reddick, of course, is still out there to preview. Just want to wait until his holdout's officially over to preview him. I don't want to preview him, talk about how much of a threat he can be, and then him not play or him miss a couple games early in the season. Like, ideally, he signs and I could preview. So we'll see. But if not, we'll just stop here with 17 episodes and close it out on a high note, talking about two studs, Aaron Rodgers and Quinnen Williams. Let me know your thoughts on both these players in the comment section down below, your expectations for Rodgers and Quinnen Williams entering 2024. And as always, hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching on YouTube and listening on all the different audio podcast platforms. Until next time, JETS, 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 Jets.